Hello and welcome to another episode of Intune.training, the Steve and Adam Show. The place to learn how to use
Adam.
Microsoft Intune. I get it backwards even still, a year and a half. With the boys.
At least it's not Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, hey, it's Steve and Ben and Jake and special guest Spencer Shumway from Microsoft. Spencer, can you tell us who you are and the things you do, and then we will jump into our topic.
Sure. Hey, I'm Spencer Shumway. I'm a PM at Microsoft, been working on Autopilot and most recently reporting. I've been there 2.5 years now and really liking it, having a lot of fun interacting with MVPs and customers all around. And a lot of people are interested in reporting, so I wanted to come on the show and get out some reporting evangelism and let people know what's up.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We are happy to have you here. We're very thankful that you made some time to come and chat with us. Just today, I gave a presentation on feature updates, and I got to show the new Windows Update preview reporting that is in Intune now. We did a video on that a couple weeks back, I think, when it first dropped. And so I got to show some of that coolness. So we're very excited to dig into this. I know that this is an area that's kind of a black box for lots of folks, and hopefully we can shed some light on kind of what it is and how it works and why it is the way it is. So take it away.
All right, will do. But yeah, thanks for the call, and I'm glad you enjoyed those feature update reports. They were a long time coming, and we have more coming as well. So
I alluded to that. I guessed at that in our
we do have more.
You got to click through to drill into the thing, and it's like, oh, there must be more coming because they built this whole extra landing page for it. Give us some more reports.
And luckily, we also we just hired a new PM for that specifically. So
very cool. Good.
We replaced Dune. He's dead to us. No, I'm just kidding. We missed you, but we got someone else in to help out. So
fun bit of trivia: Dune was our very first Microsoft guest.
Oh, really?
Him when we were at MMS Jazz in New Orleans. He came on and chatted with us about tenant attach, and all the cloud value stuff. So
I was at that conference, by the way.
Really?
I gave an autopilot session.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, I was with John Markham, and I gave him my personal phone number at the time, which was a huge mistake. He's always on my back about reporting. So
we'll take that out.
We'll flash that number on the screen here real quick.
If you want to pay it back, we have our subscribers would be happy to give him a call.
No, he's awesome. He's doing great stuff. Okay, so let me share my screen. I'm just gonna kind of go over some high-level stuff about reporting. But one interesting thing to note is, like you said, reporting is a black box for a lot of customers. We're always trying to get customer feedback. We're always trying to improve the experience. Historically, the experience hasn't been great. I'll be honest. It's been a rough, as Intune's grown and went from startup to like a mid-tier and now a fully fledged Gartner leader in the UEM quadrant. We've made some investment areas and we've missed some investment areas, and reporting has been one that historically was missed. In a recent customer event that I was leading, I had a survey out and I asked the customers, how many of you view reporting in Intune as either a blocker, or how many of you view it as a blocker? Yes, no, maybe. And over half were saying maybe or yes, it's a blocker. So a lot of customers view it as kind of a big issue. And let me show you the work we're doing to make sure that we address that feedback and get the experience where we need it to be. Okay, so reporting in MEM, Microsoft Endpoint Manager. The old way, if many of you are familiar with the console, is that you would see inconsistent experiences, like, maybe you'll have export, but you won't have filtering, you won't have column selections. The available columns are pretty limited typically. you'll see experiences where search may work, but other things are lacking, like export. So you've got a bunch of data there. There's no way for you to get that data out of the console if you need to do something else with it, which is pretty frustrating. And obviously you can kind of go in and muck around with the APIs and probably pull it out that way, but not user-friendly at all. And then last but not least, we have the dreaded load more on search, which comes from basically UI side search parameters or filter parameters, which are pretty terrible. And kind of an example of this would be if you're maybe trying to troubleshoot an app installation historically, and you would type your name in because you knew the app was installed on your device or failed on your device, whatever the case may be. It would come up with an empty page if your name wasn't on the first list, but then there'd be this secret little load more button. You're like, huh, what does that do? Turns out you have to click load more until you page through all the way to wherever your name happened to be, which was terrible. And if
that
there's
reminds me of the Sandlot. Do you want a s'more? S'more of what? I haven't had anything yet.
Yeah. So for the big customers, this was unusable. It's completely broken because they've got 50, 100,000 devices in some of these reports. They're not going to click load more 100,000 times, whatever.
Yep.
So we just got a lot of feedback around all these things. Okay, just inconsistent and just basic usability, and we're like, okay, let's do something. Let's go ahead and invest here to make sure that our experience works. And so that's kind of what our new approach is. Microsoft Endpoint Manager reporting the new way is everything is server side. Search, sort, filter. There's no more of the clicking load more. And it's fast. It works. We migrated the devices list to our new infrastructure earlier last year. I guess it's almost been a year now. But you can go through search through upwards of 1 million devices within seconds. And wow. Traditionally, that's not been the case. And in many of our reports today, it's still not the case. But yeah, really importantly, just it works. You can search. You can do things that you would expect out of a reporting tool. And
the thing I'll point out is that your picture right here, I'm already sold on this concept because I see up and down arrows on every column, and the names of every column are represented in that search box. Like we're like 90% of the way there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what you're going to say because of the donut.
Oh yeah, I know I'm a pie guy.
You're a pie guy.
We're actually trying to get rid of the donut viz, just so you know, but we'll see what happens. Anyways,
are you changing it for a pie?
No, a line.
Oh,
yeah.
Can we have it toggleable so we can change it from?
We need options. Yeah.
But yeah, so we're really trying to focus on, hey, let's make search usable, let's make filter usable. Where possible, let's make everything sortable, everything searchable, everything filterable. Now, that's not always possible. It doesn't always make sense. There's some columns where it just doesn't make sense to have a sort, or there's some columns where it doesn't make sense to have a filter. So that's not a hard and fast rule, but that's kind of where we're going. We're like leaning more towards empowering those experiences rather than just not having them at all. And that kind of goes into the next thing, the common UX controls. So those sorting controls, those filter controls, the column selectors, and the export, that'll be common across the console. So it's going to be the same experience and the same set of APIs essentially driving all of this.
And so you mean that because we're talking reporting, but by that statement you mean every control on every page that has data in it will have all the same UX, the same experience.
That's what we're shooting for, and it's a long tail of kind of a couple years worth of work, but that's what we're pushing for, and we already have quite a bit of it there today, as you'll see. So yeah, common UX controls, and then last but not least, better data export experience. So this has been a really big issue for customers historically, especially again our large customers, where if you have a huge data set, it's taking you a long time to, basically what you do is you go through the API and you kind of mimic the UI and you page through your data until you kind of accumulate all of it and do it that way. For some of our large customers, they're sitting there for 10 or 20 plus hours to get just one of their reports,
Wow.
which is pretty untenable. Yeah. And it was to the point where, the browser could crash, memory issues, things like that.
So what you're saying is, sorry, what you're saying is there was a first level support guy that his job was to get in first thing in the morning and hit the load more button the whole day so that he could load it all up.
Yeah, I mean,
and then export it.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And that's kind of what we historically told customers to do, though, because we didn't have any way to kind of just give a true dump of all the data. So, and that was the kind of the best practice that we offered. And so I'm not trying to knock it or anything. It's just that it really wasn't super scalable. And then again, you had every team building separate APIs. So each API could potentially act differently, perform differently. And now with this data export experience, really, really importantly, is there's only one API. That's it. And so it all behaves the same. It's served by the same infrastructure. The performance is going to be the same, and it's going to be a little bit more reliable and way faster. So yeah, let's get a little bit more in here. So what about custom reporting? This is a kind of a big one for customers because while we are trying to improve what we have in the console, we're never going to get to the point where a customer, or we're probably never going to get to a point where every customer is satisfied with every experience. And so what that ends up being is customers coming to me and asking me for, hey, can you build this custom thing in the UI? Or, wherever that request comes from, partner teams or whoever. And we can't always build custom things in the UI. And we have hundreds of thousands of customers. It just doesn't make sense. So what we're trying to do is kind of expose the data so that you can take it out and do whatever you need to do with it. And so with that in mind, we've given these kind of three main options here, which is the Graph Export APIs, the Azure Monitor, and mainly the Log Analytics workspaces is what we're seeing customers configure here. And then the Data Warehouse. So Data Warehouse has been here for quite a few years. A lot of customers are using it. A lot of our biggest customers are using it. A lot of people love it. A lot of people are frustrated by the amount of data that we kind of cover there. And one key thing to call out in the data warehouse is that the data warehouse doesn't actually include all Intune data. And so what kind of data is there, you ask? And the general consensus of what we put there is snapshot type data, some historical data, some trend data. And we're usually not trying to take huge, giant data sets. And we can talk about that a little bit more in the future as well. But yeah, that's just kind of generally the data warehouse is for historical and some aggregate and trend type data. But again, you won't get everything there.
So Spencer, and you may get to this later on, but because it's black box, what is it? To me, I look at it and say, it's just data. Why is it all in one place? Why, where is the data in Graph stored versus Log Analytics versus data warehouse? And what makes it different or inaccessible from each of the others? Because I personally love Log Analytics and doing Custo and being able to see the tables that are there easily without having to go dig through an API reference to go figure out the right entity to query for Graph and that kind of. So I'm looking at it from a SQL perspective, SQL background, data relationship, Log Analytics makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can you speak to that structure and what's so unique about it?
Yeah. So historically, the Graph APIs, like I've said, have been built and maintained by each separate team. So the apps team will have their own set of APIs. The device config team will have their own set of APIs. Autopilot, enrollment team, you name it, they've got their own set of APIs backed by their own data store. The data store could be a couple of different technologies that are basically powering that data set. And so even if the APIs are exposed via Graph, which is kind of a common layer, the backend to those APIs will often be different sets of technologies, and they're maintained by different teams. So each team may have varying levels of data engineering expertise, and some may lack it and some may be great at it. So historically, it was pretty hit or miss as far as like performance and storage options behind the APIs. So this is, again, not something that would be visible to you guys. This is opaque to you. But from our side, we had disparate data stores. And so Data Warehouse came along as kind of a solution that we would offer on top of, not on top of the APIs, but aside from them, which would give you a central storage solution. And so we would kind of take all this data from all these different feature teams and pump it into one central place. And then you have, and we built a kind of a Power BI connector that would be really easy to just plug in and use there. And that model it's pretty good. It's very easy for customers to use. It's very customer friendly. But it's actually, it turns out it's bad for us in the sense that when we put all this data into the same database, it can be pretty large amounts of data and pretty problematic performance-wise again.
It sounds like
especially,
it may end up being like a data swamp. Instead of a data lake, it's just...
yeah. I mean, I don't know about that, but it's the performance was actually pretty poor again for the larger customers and even mid-sized customers if you're pulling kind of the larger data sets. And it got to the point where we actually kind of like, we were storing so much data there that we were tipping over our own SQL instances that were running the data warehouse. So that's again where we're kind of pulling back some of the data sets out of the data warehouse. And we'll talk about one of those data sets specifically as well. But data warehouse, I think, was kind of like our first attempt at like, how do we bring this all together so we have some sort of common backend that, you know, has a common SLA and those kinds of things. And then the next piece that I would say is it's tied into the Azure Monitor piece, but it's really the new reporting infrastructure that I've been talking about. The new reporting infrastructure is actually based off Kusto. So we take all the app team data and the policy team data and all these different data stores, and we just pull it into one central place. And that is now the central location that's serving the UI, that's serving the exports, and that's actually serving Azure Monitor as well. So before anything can become available for log analytics or Azure Monitor integration, we first have to bring it into our new infrastructure. So new infrastructure is kind of a centralized Kusto data store. Once the data is there, we can make it available for Azure Monitor consumption. And when I say Azure Monitor, there's kind of three things inside of that. There's storage, blob storage, Event Hub, and log analytics. And we've seen that a majority of our customers, I think it's something like 98% or something, when they're using Azure Monitor, are actually using like log analytics. So that's definitely the most customer-friendly and favorite cloud database and alerting and monitoring solution right now that we offer.
So just on that one, Spencer, just curious, what sort of cost is there for customers to dump their data into the log analytic workspace?
It totally depends on the size of the customer. That's like kind of the biggest thing. If you go on the log analytics pricing site, you can see their pricing per gigabyte per month. I actually kind of built like a really messy calculator just so I could compare CSEO's cost or Microsoft internal IT costs. And the calculation I found is that for about 700,000 or 800,000 devices, and so I ran this calculation for assuming, maybe we can show the UI. You guys want to pull up your UI and I can just show?
Yep.
Steve, you got it?
I've got it. I'll share it right now.
Mine still has the dots.
Oh, shoot.
So let me know when you can see it.
Yep. Yeah. You want to do a quick zoom there? One click. Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're going to
go to the portal.azure.
All right.
Not P056.
Hey, my fingers weren't quite on the home keys. I'm sorry.
And then go to monitor or just type log analytics.
All right.
Last time we let you drive, Steve.
Actually, we do want. Let's go to Azure Monitor. Let's just
Okay.
go to Monitor. Yeah, there we go. Should have diagnostic settings in here.
Yep.
There we go. Yeah. So you should be able to find. Is that?
So this is
maybe click on that one.
Yep. So this is our one that we're
There we
using
go.
for Intune, but we don't have it turned on here.
Okay. So if you click, click add one really quick.
Yep.
Oh yeah, you can't see it. Basically, we have kind of a set of tables that are available. If you would, I think the Intune one seems to be acting up right now, but we have.
Well, it works from Steve's Intune side of things.
So over in Intune, if I go to reports, diagnostic settings.
Oh, all right.
There it is there.
Yeah, so you can see the 4 tables we actually made available.
Go back, Steve. Go to the edit setting.
Right there. Those are the 4 tables. So you can think of these as tables in our database that we've made available for our customers. They can go select those tables and select either log analytics, storage, or event hub.
Just out of interest, if I was to put it into storage account, does that put it as a CSV or is it table storage, or what is it presented out to the customer as?
I think it's just JSON blobs, actually.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yep.
Nice.
And then Event Hub, just for completeness of the conversation, Event Hub is around having the ability to do action straight away off that task, correct?
Yeah, you can listening to events. It's kind of more for like a monitoring scenario, but we don't. Again, I haven't got a lot of customers using that, and haven't done too much with it anyways. So
that sounds like that's built more for like a SCOM type function.
Yeah,
that's
you would
100%.
integrate with the
or
software.
do action when device enrolls, as an example. So,
but you can do that in log analytics as well. Like they have alerting tools in log analytics. So yeah, but just to be a little bit clear, the devices table, if you configured that one, I specifically calculated the cost for Microsoft. At Microsoft, we have about 700,000 devices in our tenant, and that's about $40 a month.
That's pretty
wow, okay.
For that table.
Actually, I'm impressed.
Just Steve, double click on that guy and hit run, just to see the columns that are there.
Let's do a little bit longer.
7 days back. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, so you've got 200 devices.
203 records.
You probably don't even have 200 devices because we publish once a day. So you have 200 divided by 7. So you have about 30 devices, maybe.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yeah,
hey,
look at
whoa, pretty close.
Look at that. Good maths.
Yeah, so that would cost you like nothing, like $1 maybe.
Nice.
But we're talking about cost, and so back on the set. So if we choose not to check the box to bring that item into our log analytics workspace, that continues to be something that is included in our Intune subscription. That you guys are creating and using on the back end. The data exists and is being stored on the back end for Intune to use for all of the back end APIs to use. But if we want to expose it for ad hoc reporting and things like this, like we've got on the screen, that's when we would start incurring the extra cost then?
Yeah.
Where you're pumping it into my workspace instead of into the Microsoft workspace? Yeah,
you can just think of it as we're publishing data to a cloud database for you. So you're charging me for my own data? Come on, man. Well, I mean, a lot of customers have these big old beefy servers running, SQL Server, whatever it is, that have cost thousands of dollars. Maintenance is extremely expensive. The subject matter expertise required is extremely expensive. The data pipeline reliability is probably less. I mean, I can't say for certain on that, but This is just a no hassle, much easier way to kind of get a lot of that database and custom value for pretty cheap.
Yep.
But one key thing that I do always call out here is there's never, like, our goal is to never expose any data in log analytics that you can't already get for free from the console or from the export. And so the API, if you want to just pull it straight from the API and take it to Power BI, you can do that, and that's free. And so this scenario is really more for people who have kind of advanced needs, who need to join data, who need to, potentially with AAD data or other types of custom inventory data that they might be pulling with their own logs. I think it's just a more advanced solution for folks. Yeah.
Nice.
And as Jake just pointed out in the chat, sometimes some of us like to do cross apply. I once wrote a query that had cross apply like 15 times in it.
Where's the shirt, man?
So one of the other things that I like with log analytics and why we have this turned on, and we've spoken about it previously, is the fact that you can see all of the audit actions on your tenant. So this is where if Ben goes and does something on the tenant where he deletes an app or updates an app, I can see that action's occurred.
Right.
So it gives you that overview as well, just to put that out there.
So yeah, if you go back to the diagnostic settings, can you just go back to that? Or I mean, you can kind of see it here. You've got Intune audit logs, Intune device compliance org, Intune devices, Intune operational logs, and then I believe audit logs and sign-in logs are actually from AAD. I'm not sure what operation is from. But yeah, so basically we've only made a subset of data available here at this point, but going forward, we're actually trying to make it so that pretty much anything that's available via the export API would also be available for publication to log analytics. And I think that's one of the things that's been holding a lot of customers back is we don't have kind of a critical mass of data there yet where they can find value in joins and creating their own custom workbooks, and workbooks are pretty cool as well. So, but I don't think we need to get into that right now. No. So let me flip back over to my PowerPoint. Yeah, the cost is like I said, it's hard to predict. For device-based ones, it's pretty easy if you know how many devices you have, we can kind of break it down from there. But like for audit logs and some of the other log data, it just totally depends on how many actions you have, how many operational things are happening in your tenant.
Spencer, before you go back to your PowerPoint, because we like to make suggestions to the PMs when we have them here. I think a model
don't feel you have to take it on.
But okay, but fair enough. You don't. It's just a thought. So I know we've got the calculator, but even still, it's like I don't know. I don't know how much data is. I don't know how many records I'm going to get. I don't even know what's in these tables before I go check the box. How do I really know what I'm going to get? Wouldn't it be great if we had a trial period where you say you get 90 days, you can turn on any of these things for 90 days, and we'll spit out an estimate based on the usage you're bringing in, or even you can click the box and say, please give me the estimate based on what I already know about my data from your back end. You can calculate within the console using actual data that exists because you've already got it. Calculate it before you send it into my console using my data. I think that would be powerful because there are numerous things like Cloud Management Gateway. Talk to Rob York. Ask how many times he's had to explain to people how cheap a Cloud Management Gateway is. And yet there are people that are like, we can't do that. It costs money. Yep. But we don't know how much money, so how do we articulate to someone? And I think that would be really awesome to be able to calculate it for me with my data.
Yeah, especially with Azure costing. The number of customers previously when I was as a consultant that would go and turn this on, and then like 2 months later, they're like, oh, we turned that off because it was costing us a whole heap of extra money that we weren't expecting. And it's like, prove to me that it was Intune. It's like, nah, we just turned it off.
Yeah, I heard that so many times.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I actually have an item on my backlog for that. So I have an item to build a calculator, but we'll see. Again, we have to prioritize, and who knows what'll happen. That's
I'd go for sort and search on all the pages first.
I know.
Yes,
Yeah,
so would I.
it's like we're really scratching the surface of like making the reporting actually work here.
There you go. Satisfy all the existing customers first, and then all the
Yeah.
just have to wait, right?
Yeah, so that's what
all the Adam asks.
I'm trying to balance there.
Bottom of the list.
So let me flip back over here.
And this is why none of them will come back. I know.
Okay, so we just had a good little dive on Azure Monitor Log Analytics, and this export API, again, it's a central API. We've documented it. We've explained which data is available via this API. We should have probably a doc update coming out. We haven't updated it for a few months, so it's a little bit stale. But we should have one coming out pretty soon where we give the kind of, here's all the new reports that have onboarded. And so look out for that. And again, like nothing is going to be in Log Analytics that you can't get for free out of the export API.
Cool. And I think just for the audience, we've got, and we'll put a link if someone remembers, we did a video on accessing the data warehouse in Power BI at some point. So I believe we've got one out already on the site.
Yeah, link that. That'd be awesome. So yeah, we talked about this again. There's kind of a paradigm shift here between how we've traditionally told people to do things, which is the paging, versus our new export API. And the logic is different. You're not going to just be able to point your scripts that you've been targeting, your device config or your managed devices API, straight at our export API and have it work. Luckily, I have like an example script that I can share out, and we've kind of given pretty decent examples in like a past Ignite session that I gave, and in the documentation we're actually pretty clear about how the API works, and so it's not too complicated, but it's different. So there's definitely customers who've complained about that, but as we progress and move along, there's definitely some people are unhappy and grumble either way. So the export API, whenever a data set is available via the export API, we recommend that you use the export API and that you don't page on that data set. So an example of this would be the all devices list. If you're paging through the all devices list, if you're kind of mimicking what the UI does, the performance is actually going to be worse for you than it was historically. As we moved over to our new infrastructure, we're actually worse at paging than the old infrastructure was. Yeah, but the whole reason for that is we tell people we don't want you paging. Don't hit us. Like the people are DDoSing us.
Yeah,
you know, thousands of times for a single report. And we have like 100 reports in the console. So if even just one tenant is trying to grab all the reports and each report, they're paging on it, it's just a mess. So
yeah. So full clarity, I put a thing on Twitter a couple of months ago saying, hey, I want to talk about paging and batching in Graph. And almost immediately after, I got a message from Spencer going, hey, we should talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not it's nothing wrong right now, but as again, more of the data sets flip from the old infrastructure to the new infrastructure, you will see either A, your performance gets worse, or B, it will just not work at all. So that's why it's kind of important, I think, that we keep on top of what is available via export. And you'll notice again that these reports have moved over to our new infrastructure because search is going to work, sort's going to work, filter's going to work. Just the regular things will start to work. And it's hard to keep up with, I totally understand. So that's why we kind of try and document and release updates when we can. Every month we release in our what's new and in development, which reports are coming out. So we'll try our best to keep up to date on the docs so you all know where we are at with that. So yeah, that's paging versus export. We recommend, again, use export where possible. It's going to be great. And we drop off at just a compressed CSV file, which you can load straight into Power BI. Super simple, right from the UI. A lot of customers are super happy. Again, like I've had customers go from waiting 20 plus hours to a few minutes on their data exports. So a lot of happy customers in that regard.
And Spencer, to be clear, this is a function that, I mean, you had the icon on the previous slide there, the export with the arrow. So I've seen that in the console, especially like just looking at the new autopilot. I mean, not the autopilot, the feature update reports. But what you're saying is you could, if you're going to like, if I was going to consume this in Power BI and wanted to have this available all the time, always fresh, this would be something I would script out, right? I would be able to script out the export.
You could
script CSV, right?
Export. Yeah, and that's one of the customer feedback points that we've kind of taken, and we're looking at how do we make it easier for that, because there's still some manual. Like if even if you download the script, or if you download the file with the script, how do you upload it to Power BI? And right now we say, well, look, it's easy, point and click, but there is still the point and click, and so we're looking at other solutions of how we can kind of like fully automate the entire process. And we'll talk about that later too. But for now, it is pretty easy, and customers can kind of build automation as they see fit. And just so you know, this export button technically could be serviced by our old APIs, or well, not our APIs, our old infrastructure or our new infrastructure. So it wouldn't really be clear to you unless you were inspecting the network traffic. Then you would see that some of them are paging and some of them are not. Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about a new announcement that I want to make sure everyone hears about. We just released this in our in our in development docs for 2104, or no, 2105. Yeah, 2105. Which means this change is going to release. It's actually not going to release because we're announcing 3 months early, but essentially it's for the May release. We're deprecating the application inventory data set in Data Warehouse. And customers liked this data set for a few reasons, but like, the big one is it's all of your devices and all the apps that we know about on those devices. And so there's a lot of customers who have need for that for one reason or another. There are a few like limitations with the existing data set. And one of the big ones is we don't have Win32 application data even at all. We just don't have it. And a lot of people aren't aware of that, but it's a limitation. So we're cutting this out for a few reasons, but kind of the biggest one is it's actually too big for our data warehouse right now. It's super expensive, and it's actually, again, it's one of those issues where customers who are trying to pull this data, if they're decent sized customers, are taking hours and hours to get just this one table. Right. So it's super expensive. It's not performant, and it's actually not completely accurate. So for those reasons, those are kind of the main big reasons, and then the cost of maintaining this table is actually a little expensive as well from us from an engineering perspective. We are deprecating this in 2107, so in July this is going to shut off. And if you go look at the Data Warehouse docs, you'll see that we have a note in there saying, hey, this is deprecating in 2107. So anyone who's using this data set as like some sort of compliance tracking to track what apps are on every single one of your devices, you're going to need to be aware of that. Luckily for you, as part of the 2105 release, we're releasing a new data set as part of the export API, coming back to the export API, where you'll actually be able to pull this in, again, super quick, compressed CSV format. And one of the advantages here is that this is actually going to be a more accurate data set. So we're improving the accuracy and in the inventory, and we're also improving the frequency of the inventory. I think we're moving up to 24 hours. So every day we're taking new inventory on the devices, where historically it's been once every 7 days, I think. So increasing the frequency, and then we're actually adding Win32 app data into this, the new export. So look out for that in the what's new for 2105. It'll be available in the UI and via the export API. One other thing to call about that, though, is we will still be lacking certain types of Win32 apps, namely those installed from .exes. And we're targeting to fix that that gap, I guess, later in the year. But it'll be more complete than this one.
Nice.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So just everyone know about that.
So Steve posted in our chat here.
Sorry,
so the compressed. Well, no, it's fine. It's fine. This is just kind of making notes here. So compressed CSV, is that a C? Are you joking? Is that a CCSV format?
Yeah, I guess.
You got me on that one. I didn't have no clue. Are you kidding? Is this real? Is that a real question, Steve?
It was a joke.
It is now.
It comes in like a zip folder.
All right, now I'm
They
gonna
have
have
to
to.
extract
It comes in a zip folder, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Because I'm probably gonna have to work with this soon. So.
Yeah, I can show you that later too. So.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
All right. So yeah, these are the data sets available. Managed apps is basically here. It's a little bit. It's actually not publicly available, but it'll be there soon. Discovered apps, the raw data that I just talked about, which is replacing the app inventories, is coming soon. Some of the top level compliance policies, config policies.
So just out of interest, Spencer, with the managed app ones and things like that, what's the time frame we're looking at?
Hopefully next month.
Okay, so in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah, cool.
Or it might be 2104 actually.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
2104 or 2105.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
see. Yeah, and that is when you click on an app, the installation list per device, and also the app installation report will be totally revamped, which is pretty awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah. MAB export data is available. We don't have UI reports for that, though. It's never been there. We may look at adding it later. Devices list, like I said, threat protection, feature updates, like Adam mentioned, co-management eligibility and workloads, and group policy migration readiness. Big data set's not there. Enrollment data is not there. Expedited updates are not there. Quality updates are not there. Again, we just hired a new updates PM though, so I'm hoping we can kind of target that for sometime later this year. Autopilot data not there. Most resource reports. So when you click on an individual policy or individual device, we haven't yet moved the individual reports per. So they're called resources, but we haven't moved the object level reporting over. And then most log analytics reports are not available. So we haven't published the tables to log analytics. And then resource access, things like some of the CERT data and things like that are also lacking from the new infrastructure. New stuff we're thinking about. I probably should have added like the log analytics calculator here as well, but scope searching for reports. JSON formatted export rather than CSV. Some customers really want JSON.
As long as it's not XML, we'll take whatever.
Yeah.
We're gonna look at this. I don't know if we'll actually do it. The CSV, like the file transfer for CSV, is a lot better than JSON, from what the devs were telling me. So
interesting.
Because .json is 4 characters and .csv is 3.
Well, CSV is 4.
Then another cool one is we're looking at saving reporting views. So trying to figure out how we can configure kind of a way to save your combination of column and filter selections.
A lot of people are going to be very happy about that. Just this week, I've had at least 3 people get annoyed that when they leave a screen, they have to go back in and put the columns in.
Yeah, it's super annoying.
Yeah.
It's really annoying. I can't say any timelines for any of these. These are just kind of like top level things that a lot of customers ask me about. I don't have any commitment here, so no commitment. These are just things we're looking at.
So Spencer, is this Azure wide initiative to standardize on some of these things? And the reason I'm asking is if you go to I think it's groups today. It's one. The default
Thinking of
sort
the
order
resources,
is like by the GUID or something instead of by the device name. It's like it's alphabetical by the resource GUID instead of but I think it's an Azure entity that's in like it's in the groups thing in Intune but it's an actually an Azure object. Is how does I don't know how the crossover works between Intune folks and the Azure consumption pieces.
Well, I'm not sure about that piece that you're talking about, but the report view saving is actually from Azure. We're taking that from them. So they have a concept. If you go to like your resources, Azure resources, it's called managed views, and you can save your view, which is your combination of columns and filters. So we're trying to bring that into MEM, but it's a lot of work. So. All right, and then we have kind of a roadmap here. Again, like we're just trying to get everything in the console on the new infrastructure to work. We want, and then once we have all the reports there, we want to make them available via the export API and Azure Monitor / Log Analytics, just so customers can get their data out and do that custom reporting again, and then incremental improvements along the way. There's a lot of stuff that we're kind of just, as we go along, we're like, that's annoying, or that isn't right. Or we get a lot of customer feedback and we're like, let's go do this. Like, let's fix this right now. We're in the process of another one of those big items that we're trying to fix right now. It's been 6 months. It'll probably be like another 6 months. But once it arrives, I think a lot of customers will be really happy with it. So just, again, a lot of improvements going on. A lot of stuff behind the scenes that a lot of folks are not aware of, but I think we're moving really well in the right direction. And yeah, with that, I have a bunch of useful resources that I recommend any of you who are wanting to learn more about Intune reporting, go check out. These have pretty much all the information you need to get started and even get pretty dang advanced for like some of this, the API documentation, the Ignite session that I gave last year, and this new GitHub that I found recently, which is pretty cool.
So you're going to want to pause your video right here so you can manually type all these addresses in. So just take your time.
Otherwise, Mark will put them down there. Thanks.
Will
Mark.
he?
And probably just paste it in the video description or something.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Okay. And yeah, that's about it. That's it for the overview of Intune reporting.
Excellent. Awesome. Guys, do we have any follow-up questions? Anything we didn't ask as we went?
I'm super overwhelmed. I'm just realizing how much work I'm going to have in the next 6 months. But I think this is all moving, forward in the correct direction, which is exciting.
Thanks for providing job security for all of us automation people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you guys have plenty of work to do.
Oh yeah,
definitely looking forward to it.
Well, I think this was wonderful, Spencer. And folks, stick around. Spencer's actually going to stay on and record a more advanced session with us. So check out the next video coming with Spencer. If you made it this far, thanks. And thanks, Spencer, and thanks, guys.
Thanks, Spencer.
See you next time.
see ya.